What is going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about a controversial subject. So if you saw the title of today's video, it is "Local Musicians Will Ruin Your Career If You Let Them." So let's just get right into that. What am I talking about? Well, today I'm going to share quite a few personal experiences, so maybe I can help you in your music career avoid a lot of these pitfalls so you don't have to go through them yourself. Because I would definitely tell you that going through this kind of stuff can be very discouraging and time consuming. Yo, Editor Surge here real quick. Just wanted to let you know, if you're looking for one-on-one lessons online with yours truly, I do have some lesson slots available, although they do fill up pretty quickly. So if that's the case, I'll put you on the wait list. Shoot me an email, link in the description below, state your case, and I will get back to you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Also, don't forget to sign up for the free monthly newsletter, link in the description below. This happened to me pretty recently, okay? So and this is kind of what led me to actually making this video, because it kind of made me realize that it doesn't matter how seasoned you are as a veteran pro musician, or if you're even just trying to start being a pro musician, or wherever you are in your journey, you can still get fooled. Basically, I live in Arizona, and Tucson, Arizona doesn't really have the greatest local music scene, if I'm being honest, especially coming from LA and Nashville. It's very non-existent in comparison. So Phoenix, Arizona is about 2 hours from where I live. That's where I'm originally from, so I actually have a pretty good pool of connects there still. And so basically, I started looking for gigs. And how do you go about looking for gigs these days? Well, usually Facebook is kind of the winner, especially when it comes to the local level, because there's so many groups out there, musicians seeking other musicians in a town, genre-wise, etc. And I didn't even inquire for any particular band. I basically just put a video of myself playing on there. I didn't even link the YouTube channel or anything like that. So basically, I just posted a video of me playing, and I got a bunch of hits on the video, people DMing me, and I had one that was kind of promising, where basically this guy from a anonymous account said, "Hey, I actually have the best gig in town, at least the way I see it, and you're the perfect guy for this gig. We're doing a bunch of Van Halen stuff and some other 80s stuff, and you can obviously play all that, so, I think you're the guy that I'd like to have in my band if you're interested." First red flag is he's DMing me from an anonymous account, but we'll get to that. So I call the guy on the phone, and I could tell he was kind of an older dude, maybe in his 50s or so, or close to it, just by some of the stuff he said. And so, I'm talking to him, I'm asking him my normal questions, what's the pay? It's usually the first question. And the reason I ask that now as the first question is because that will tell me if this gig is even going to pique my interest, because obviously if the pay isn't there, I'm going to not end up doing the thing at all. So anyways, the pay was there, and I liked the music for the most part, so that was also a win. And then he goes on to tell me all these red flags that I already knew better, but decided to look past it, I guess. So basically, he's telling me, "Oh yeah, I'm actually firing my entire band. So if you have a bass player and a drummer that you want to bring on board, I'm open to it, because I want fresh blood and I'm starting over from scratch. But keep in mind, I'm booked 9 months out, all the way from September to May of 2026. So we're booked every single weekend. So if you know anyone that wants this gig, this is the best gig in town." And I actually was kind of damn, that is a lot of bookings for the money every weekend. That's not bad. I'd be interested in that, some consistency for sure. So I immediately call my buddy, who I won't say his name in the video, but we've been friends since high school, and he's a bass player. We actually recently reconnected on a jazz gig that we played back in 2024 in November. I kind of tell him the details, and I'm like, "So, just so you know, this guy is kind of a red flag." I said, "There's a 1% chance that this guy is the victim in his story. 99% chance he's totally full of shit." And obviously he's laughing and he's like, honestly, man, those numbers sound exactly correct. I said, listen, you know, maybe there's an off chance that this gig is real and this guy isn't full of it. You want to just come with me and check it out because the pay is all right, you know, and we're both kind of looking for the same thing right now. So he's like, yeah, I'm down. And I said, cool. If it totally sucks, you're coming down with me, basically. So he agrees to show up. And then we meet this guy at like this super, super dingy, like sketchy rehearsal spot in, I think like East Mesa area of Phoenix. And man, I honestly thought this was a nasty place that we went to. Like dead cockroaches in it and crap. I was like, man, couldn't have picked a worse spot. This is literally a rehearsal place that's kind of run like a motel hotel where you pay by the hour. So like, just a quick side note on that. Most rehearsal spaces, you know, you can kind of rent them out like monthly, usually. Like you can just leave your gear there. Usually you don't see hourly rehearsal spots unless you're in like an actual music city like LA or Nashville, because they have the clientele to upkeep it, because there's just so many bands coming through for like one night shows or whatever, and they need to like just rehearse for a couple hours real quick. So that's usually where hourly stuff does better, and usually they're significantly nicer. Like they're actually kept up really nice and all of that. This place was not that at all. And I've never been in this place, but apparently people know about it. I don't know. So anyways, we meet this guy there, and I'm thoroughly unimpressed by the spot, obviously. And this dude immediately is like sizing all of us up, basically, and he just starts name dropping. I mean, at some point, this guy tells us that he's the former drummer for Sammy Hagar, and that's how he ended up getting into singing Van Halen. And he's like, dude, I'll play Hot for Teacher right now on drums and sing it if you guys are down. But then he like copped out on it. It was like, because I actually was like, okay, I'm down. Like, I'd like to see that, you know, call him on his bluff a little bit. Because obviously, when he started name dropping, both me and are like, dude, this guy is like totally full of shit, like beyond anything, right? Like both of us are seasoned enough to know, like right off the bat, it's like, man, if you just start name dropping like that, you ain't nothing. We decided to still entertain this guy because now we're here at the spot. I drove 2 hours to get there reluctantly. Either way, we learned like 5 songs for this guy. We get through the songs just fine. I think I messed up like one part of the Aerosmith song because I just don't really listen to them. You know, after this happens, this guy tells us that we have like a 2-hour slot at this rehearsal space. And then all of a sudden he cuts the time in half to an hour. And he's just like, all right, well, I only rented the space for an hour, so it's all good. And we're like, you literally texted us 2 to 4, so... He's like, oh, I thought it was 2 to 3. Okay, that's my bad. I'll go pay the guy anyways. And it was just like a weird thing, right? And the vibe, and the drummer that he called too, I guess like wasn't even his actual drummer. It was just like some random friend of his. So it was just kind of a weird situation. And me and my buddy could both feel that the vibe was totally off, right? But this guy had like literally like glazed us like all week, okay? Like it was honestly on some like kind of sketch vibes, because it was like, man, like you can just tell when someone's like totally not who they say they are, right? And this guy like glazed us so hard. Especially me, like over the week, he's like, dude, you're so badass, dude. You already got the gig, bro. Like, it's just up to you if you want to accept it, kind of crap, you know? And I knew that was crap, but I was just like, man, maybe this guy really is that delusional that he's just going to like hire me without even hearing me play. But at this point, I'm pretty much like under the impression like I definitely have the gig. I don't know if my buddy does. So we're at In-N-Out, and he says that to me. He's like, man, I think the guy's going to hire you, but I don't think he's going to take me. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, man, something fell off. So we're eating at In-N-Out, and then we both get a text message from this guy that says, hey, I'm actually going to go with my original lineup. Really good meeting you guys, and let's keep in touch. So to say that this pissed me off would have been an understatement. And if my friend watches this video, he's going to know for sure, because he took it much better than me. I was like, man, this guy wasted my time. I drove 2 hours to get here. What the heck is this, you know? So basically, there's so many red flags before this happened that we should have both just probably never even met this guy. But really at the end of it, it was like the biggest thing was like, did you not just tell us that you like straight up fired your entire band? And now you're telling us that you're going to go with them and just keep the lineup the same? Like, the guy obviously straight up lied about everything, right? So I felt like this story on its own was nearly every red flag you ever need to look out for with like any local musician you ever meet in your entire life. Because to say that I didn't even tell like all of my friends about this as a red flag, kind of as a joke leading up to this, would be untruthful. Because literally every person I told this gig about, I was like, yeah, this guy seems like a major red flag, but maybe there's an off chance that he's just delusional and crazy and the gig is real and I get paid, right? Here's me just being biased towards some of the material, because truthfully, I kind of just wanted to play a bunch of Van Halen stuff. I was like, oh, that sounds like a good gig. Like, if I have to do some cover band stuff, like doing Van Halen all day is not going to be the worst thing I've ever done by any means at all. So that was how I was justifying this, but as you can see, that was not the case. So I think, bottom line here, and this is what will help a lot of you, I think, watching this, especially if you're younger and you're kind of not hip to people doing this kind of stuff yet. Anyone that name drops anything ever to like a profuse level like this, an extreme level, is not telling the truth most of the time. And let me give you an example of this, okay? So I used to have this professor at Musicians Institute. I'm not going to say his name, but basically this guy had done a lot of things. I'm not even going to say some things. Like, almost everything he did was a big deal. So basically, this guy never talked about anything that he ever did, right? But his knowledge was like so vast, and he'd be walking in with like a new set of shoes half the time, sometimes a different watch. Those were like his subtle flexes. And you kind of didn't even pick up on him, honestly. I think it was only until one of my friends told me that, was like, oh yeah, you're right. Because he was like, man, have you ever noticed so-and-so is just like walking in with a new watch all the time? I was like, I didn't even notice, but now that you said that, then I paid attention. I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right about that. So one day I decided to ask him, right? Because I guess I could have Googled it, but I don't know. I kind of just enjoyed asking my teachers at the time, like, these questions. So I basically was like, hey man, what are like some of the projects you worked on? He's like, oh, yeah, you know that song Dear Mama by Tupac? And I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I did that one. He's like, after this, I'm going to be going to a session with the Chainsmokers and Marshmello. And I was like, oh, you're like literally like the big leagues of like everything ever. And he's like, yeah, you know, I work at the studio sometimes on the weeknights, and occasionally we'll get like Drake coming through, Taylor Swift occasionally. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was like that kind of stuff where it's like, this guy wasn't even, like, I could tell when I asked him this, like, he wasn't really like super comfortable like sharing. Like, he didn't really feel like he needed flex, you know? It was just like one of those things, like, this is what he does for a living, and he's only going to really tell you if you ask him about it, right? That's like someone who's like actually doing and done the thing, right? I had to literally take time out of my day to ask him. He was never going and name dropping and trying to be bigger than what he was. Like, he really just was that big in terms of his industry status, right? It was like, all right, dude, fair enough, you know? And I think, obviously, to a lot of young people, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes maybe they fall for the name drop stuff like that. Like, I don't know, people get flexed on easy when they're younger. I think as you get older, you're just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man, you know? Other things to watch out for. If people aren't willing to tell you the pay of the gig up front, don't even do it. Don't even show up. And I'm going to venture to even say, if you can't get paid, like, okay, it's going to be different if it's an original project because everyone has skin in the game in terms of creative input. That's different. Those I don't even expect to get paid, like, sometimes ever, to be honest, you know. Those ones you're always kind of doing, like, you know, as if you think you're going to, something's going to happen with the project, basically. But if you're doing any kind of cover stuff, or you're playing in someone else's band, you're a hired gun, if they don't tell you the pay up front, and if they're going to pay you for a rehearsal up front, I would venture to almost not do that gig. Occasionally, I will take a gig that won't pay me for a rehearsal if I really like the music, and if it's something that's like really I know the gig's gonna pay a lot, and there's a lot of gigs, something like that. But if there's like no guarantee of anything, and it's just someone with a band that says, "Hey, I got this thing, and I'm trying to do this thing," not worth the time unless they're gonna pay you at least something to come for rehearsal either. And that kind of goes for everything. I'll be honest, a red flag for me nowadays is people that just are using like huge amps at rehearsal. Like, I hate to say that, but if you're playing live, not to sound conformist, but like, you probably definitely want to adapt to things like the Tone X, the Quad Cortex, Axe Effects, things in those realm, using in-ear monitors to protect your hearing. There's kind of a lot of status, I guess you could say, gear-wise, that kind of proves if someone's a professional musician or not, or in a professional situation, basically. If they're kind of using like a bunch of analog gear, they're still got like the Marshall full stack, you kind of have like one of two options with that. Either this person is an amazing musician and they like literally use that rig because that's the only tone that they want to dial in for themselves because they got it nailed, or they're kind of a poser and don't really know what they're doing, and they just have the gear as like a mask for what they can't actually play, unfortunately. I'm just being honest about that. So to me, it's definitely a lot more of a green flag when someone just shows up with like the Helix or a Tone X or Axe Effects, Quad Cortex, etc. I haven't seen a Kemper in a while, but that too. So like, those are the kinds of things that I look for in a professional setting. Are they going to use floor monitors, or are we using in-ear monitors? Now, I know that there's kind of a generational difference with that. Like, I know Joe Bonamassa has a lot of statements talking about how much he hates in-ear monitors. But at the end of the day, I'm all about protecting my hearing. I don't want to be on a loud stage every single night and have my hearing, like, literally leave me at a young age. So for me, in-ear monitors are the way to protect my hearing, because obviously it isolates me from the drums. I don't have to hear cymbals constantly in my ears, and I can just turn stuff down that I don't want to hear, so the mix is better, right? Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't feel the stage. It's just a subjective thing, you know? Like if you're on a stage with the drummer, you're going to feel the drums regardless. So to me, it's always, I don't know. I've always been a fan of that, and to me, it feels a lot more professional when people have the in-ear systems instead of floor wedges. So there's those kinds of green flags to look for with a band. But I think really, you know, the main one is like, are they humble people? Are they actually going to do what they say? Are they going to talk about pay with you up front? And is their gear semi-professional enough to make them kind of stand out as like a group that knows what they're doing? Because at the end of the day, no one wants to load hundreds of pounds of gear if you don't have to. You know, you want to make gigs as easy as possible for yourself. Like, I think I did that video where I showed you guys about my solo jazz gig where I literally just showed up with the Tone X pedal and my Strat and a looper. And like, that gig was the easiest load in, load out I've ever done in my entire life. And I've done a couple of those, you know, and that's what you want your life to be if you're going to be a gigging musician. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Don't break your back. Don't let people steer you the wrong way, and don't let people take advantage of you. You know, you got to get paid for your time. You know, you got to think about it this way. Like, and this is how I think about it now too. I've put like I think I'm at the 19 or 18 year mark guitar playing. I don't know. It's pretty close to 20 years at this point. Pretty much can just say it's been 20. So 20 years into music. Okay. I've been playing since I was 7 years old. I'm about to be 26 next week. So nearly 20 years in, okay, this is all the time that I've put into, for one, becoming skillful enough to play your material and learning it quickly, and then also I show up on time, right? Those are like the three things that you can do basically to make yourself stand out. If you do all those things, why am I not going to get paid for every single one of those things? For one, like, most rehearsals, you got to pay me, especially if it's not my band. Or have enough gigs that it makes my rehearsal time worth it, and we don't have to mess around, and we can just rehearse for like an hour and call it a day. Unless I really like you and we become friends, that's kind of a different story, but most of the time we're not friends. It's a business transaction for me with the potential of friendship later on. How about that? So you got to get paid for your time, and then you got to get paid for your performance. Performing takes a lot out of you, you know, and you got to make that worth your while, because it's not really just a performance. Like, yeah, maybe you perform for an hour. Maybe you do the cover band circuit where you're doing 3 sets, so it's basically ends up being like almost 4 hours. So if you're doing those things, I'm sorry, but $150 is not enough money. It's just not. I guess sometimes it can be justified with the tips. Maybe you end up making double that. But even $300 has got me hard pressed. I'm not going to lie. Especially when it's a full band setting. I got to load the gear. I got to be there hours early. Like, you got to think about it. Usually the call times for these gigs are like 3, 4 p.m., something like that. You're not playing till like 8 or 9 a lot of the time. And then you got to play for 3 hours. Then you got to be at the venue till 1 a.m. and you got to load out all the gear. So if you do the math, you're almost on a 10-hour day right there, right? And sometimes you're longer than that. Sometimes they're 12-hour days. Let's talk about the travel, right? If you got to go out of town for a gig and you got to travel there, and you're only going to make $300, doesn't make any sense to me. So this is why I say you gotta kind of have a spine. If you want to be a professional musician, you got to just stand up for yourself, and you got to be willing to say no. That's your most powerful thing, your most powerful move that you can make in any situation that you have in doing this as a career, is being able to say no and being okay with a group moving on to somebody else. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get offered something better if you say no to something, and that's just how it is. It's always going to be like that. So don't let it discourage you. I hope this advice maybe helps. Quick plug, if you are looking for one-on-one instruction from yours truly, I have very limited slots available for guitar, but there is a couple available. So if you are interested in taking your playing to the next level, and the videos aren't enough for you and you need more, feel free to email me below and state your case. I will get back to you. Even if the slots fill up, I'll still get back to you and let you know and put you on a waiting list. So sign up for the free monthly newsletter, and I appreciate it. Leave it in the comments below. What do you guys think? I'll see you on the next one.